Recently, the media was called out to a gathering named the State of Our Rivers. It was put on by the city of Eden since the big coal ash spill that took place last year.
Typically, about this time of year, the city of Eden will hold a press appreciation luncheon. Now, what we decided to do this year was something a little bit different, but that's all based upon the attention, the focus that's been on our rivers in the past year. So what we've decided to do is to give you the most accurate and up-to-date information that we have about Eden and Rockingham County and the rivers therein. I'm going to assure you, there's no question that we're very proud of our river promotions and the activities that are going on, as well as the state of the rivers that is in place right now.
At that meeting, the EPA said that the water currently had no risk to humans.
So we've had 2 quarterly sampling events since the completion of the removal in July. And both of those 2 quarterly sampling events have showed no human risk or eco risk threshold exceedances in any of the samples collected in the 2 quarterly sampling events.
Duke Energy's representative Paul Newton says that science says the rivers are thriving.
First, testing by the state of North Carolina, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, and Duke Energy demonstrated that the water quality in the Dan River returned to normal levels just days after the incident. So that testing confirmed that. Now, these monitoring and testing activities, I think as you heard just a little bit earlier from Tiffany, are going to continue. So we'll see as time goes on where we are. But second, in April of 2014, so two to 3 months after the incident, NC State published a study saying that the water in the river was appropriate and acceptable for use on crops and livestock. So another scientific data point, just a couple of months out from the incident. Third, we now know that mussels are flourishing. Mussels are an indicator of a river's health, and a November 2014 study by Alderman Environmental Services, one of the nation's leading mussel experts, found 10 species thriving in the Dan River Basin, and 2 that are extremely rare for the Roanoke River Basin. Fourth, a November 14th study by the North Carolina Department of the Environment and Natural Resources looked at macroinvertebrates. Macroinvertebrates are those tiny little things, insects, that are early indicators of the health, the environmental health of a body of water. So they took a look, they went downstream, they went upstream, and they took samples, and it's in what's called the benthic layer of the river. That means under the water, but the top few inches of sediment on the water. So that's where they tested, upstream, downstream. And what they found was that the macroinvertebrate populations are in excellent condition, which is the highest biological rating available. Not Duke Energy telling you this is what the science is saying. If we could rewind the clock and the incident never happened, we would do that. We can't do that. But given the fact that it happened, we're standing here today with some significant scientific findings since that incident occurred, and words cannot express how pleased I am to be able to say to you that the science is telling us that this river is thriving.
After the meeting, Duke officials said that Newton was too busy to talk to the press. Instead of Newton, we got the company spokesman.
We are seeing a lot of studies and research from universities, from leading experts in the industry, and from our regulators at the state level who are seeing good signs in the river that conditions are good. We've seen that mussel populations are thriving in the river. That's an important key indicator as to the health of the river. We're also seeing that agricultural use appears to not be affected at this point. However, we do have ongoing studies that will continue to look at that. And we've also seen from our regulatory agencies that have seen that the benthic bugs, if you will, the macroinvertebrates at the river bottom there, where they have sampled, are thriving and doing well. So again, cautiously optimistic, certainly want to continue those studies, continue monitoring, but it's a good sign for Eden, and I think it means that the river is in good condition and really is open for business.
We haven't seen any coal ash in any of the samples that we've collected most recently, And, when you say thriving, I think that's,
It's a little PR.
well, I'm not going to say that. I mean, it's objective. I'm not as familiar with the river as some of the people here, the locals. If the local who's lived here all his life and has been on the river his whole life says it's thriving, I'll take his word for it.
After that, we heard from a local businessman, Scott Dalton. He's a small business owner of Mayadan Outdoor Sports, and he says he sees no problem with the river.
I myself eat fish out of Bugs Island. I haven't eaten any out of the river, but I do eat them at Bugs Island, or Kerr Lake, which is the spill out point for the Dan River. But personally, I eat the fish. Like I said, I was down there this weekend. I saw at least 1,000 pounds of fish this weekend, and you can't visibly see what's inside of them, but the fish looked healthy. Like I said, everything looked as normal to me, and they weren't highly stressed. They all had to be released alive. That was part of the tournament, and every fish swam off. And under those conditions, they're kept in a tank all day. I would think if there was a stress issue, that would accelerate that. So. At this point in time today, now I don't speak for next year or the year after, but at this point in time, I feel comfortable with the river. I feel comfortable taking my family to the river for one thing, and I wouldn't do anything to jeopardize them. But everything looks good to me.
Taking a look at the state of the river, I'm Charles Rourke reporting for Star News.